Welcome back to the podcast. It's great to be here once again. And as always, I am grateful and thankful that you've taken your time. I still say it because I still mean it. Tonight, we're going to basically wrap up some things that we've been talking about with the Bretton Woods Conference, United Nations, and so forth. I got a lot of things I want to get to in some other podcasts, a lot of things. But I want to wrap this up so we understand where we're at because we've been under this illusion. A lot of people, and unfortunately, it's secular people that have been ripping off the veil, so to speak. And Christians, or those who call themselves Christians, have not been ripping the veil off, or they jumped the bandwagon. It's pretty sad how that works out. But I've talked about that the fact that we're at the end. A lot of people have spoken about the fact that we're at the end. I don't know how you can look at it any other way. When the secular world thinks we're all going to die, and the Christian world thinks or knows we're all going to end at some point, where the rapture, if you want to call it that, or the catching away, we know what's going to happen. We just have two different reasons and two different ideas of what's going to happen at the end. We follow the Bible, the world follows what the world follows. I want to recap, like I said earlier. And again, I'm going to repeat myself, but we will be going on to different topics. We'll be all over the place. We'll try to post more podcasts as much as I can, but we can all we can trace everything we got going on back to one spot. You can trace it all back. Everything we're dealing with today, whether it be World Health Organizations, WTO, the World Economic Forum, United Nations, what I already said, NATO, everything, back to Bretton Woods. And if you've tuned into this podcast, haven't listened to any of the other ones, basically, the Bretton Woods Conference was an economic alliance with all the different countries that came together. That was the month of July in 1944. Now, remember, that's a year before Germany and Japan actually formally surrendered. So, the beginning of all this is Franklin Delano Roosevelt puts this together. So, when we look at the Bretton Woods Conference in 1944, we see the International Bank for Reconstruction and Development come out of that. We see the IMF, the International Monetary Fund, which led into things like the International Development Association. Now, understand, the International Monetary Fund will be connected to World Bank. World Bank was actually created in San Francisco in 1944, and that's going to play a role. I'm gonna revisit them in a few minutes. You have the International Development Association in 1960. You have the International Finance Corporation that set itself up in 1956. You have the Multilateral Investment Guarantee Agency. You have the International Center for Settlement of Investment Disputes. Then you have the ITO. You have the International Trade Organization. You have the World Trade Organization that will, down the road, has its genealogy or its roots in the Bretton Woods Conference. You have the NATO, who was formed. Basically, they're just a military structure, and they were formed in 1949. They came from that entity, which led into that. You have the North America Treaty Organization Committee. You have the committee that led to the Allied Command Operations, the Allied Command Transformation. You have the NATO civilian structure. You have the North Atlantic Council, the North Atlantic Treaty Parliamentary Assembly. You have the World Health Organization, which set itself up in 1948, taking over for a French actually organization. So help, and then kind of swallowed up other things. Now you have to understand, when the United Nations was put together in 1945, it had six sections of its structure, or six principles, if you wanted to say it that way. You have the General Assembly, you have the Secretariat, you have the International Court of Justice, you have the Security Council, you have the Economic and Social Council, and you have the Trustee Council. And the United Nations swallows up the WHO, which is the World Health Organization. Well, there's your health department under the United Nations. So you have the World Health Development or Organization. So who's in charge of your health in this world will be the United Nations. The NATO will be your police force, your military of the world, of the nation. You have your World Bank, the IMF. There's your economy. There's your money. And you get places like UNICEF that feed your children or whatever children they want to feed. That's under the United Nations. You have the General Assembly, like I said, it's a NATO civilian structure. The International Court of Justice is held in at the Hague or in the Hague overseas, which is also one of the seats of the United Nations, by the way. They have different seats. We talked about that before: Geneva, Nairobi, New York, and the Hague, and so forth. Um, and you have the Security Council, like I said, which is the NATO. That's your security, your North American Treaty Organization, the police force. You have your Economic and Social Council, which is literally your World Bank. They're going to be in charge of that. And we already talked about the Trustee Council. All these fall under this. We'll be serving the United Nations. You know, you have to understand when FDR set this road up. You know, you have to. What is going on in the world today? You can look outside your window. I mean, maybe not literally out your particular window where you may be, but you see what the world is today. You see where it's going. You see who has controlled these forces. You have to go back to the beginning of each thing. What are the origins of each? They're born again Christians who don't even, or I'm going to say the professing Christians that don't even know the origins of the religion of which they're in. And that's pretty sad. Very sad. So at some point in time, you have to come to the realization that the United Nations runs your World Bank, which is the IMF. It runs your NATO. That's the future military. Your International Center for Disputes. That's your court system. The WHO, I just mentioned that earlier, the World Health Organization. That's your health care. The World Trade Organization, which is part of the United Nations system. I mean, it's amazing how things are in front of your eyes. And, we run so long in this country on nationalism in America, America. Listen, you have to look at the mirror, and eventually you have to be honest with yourself. And especially if you're born again. America is dying with no reviving. There is no revival, only a falling away. There are no second chances when you're dead. Your faith in man to save you, because everybody wants to trust a man, but your faith in man to save you is a faith misplaced. What is written will come. No matter how hard you try to play God, you're not a Marvel superhero in some fantasy world that has you detached from reality just because you don't like it. The United Nations, the Vatican, have got the market, I was going to say market cornered, but basically market almost prepped for the CEO beast. The unity of nations, unity of false religions. Everything is about unity, 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 unify, coexist, get together internationally, come together or trade together, world trade. And we have been in multiple phases and stages. And FDR, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, 1944, controlled by Satan, helped in its final phase, which we are in now. Politics and religion, religion and politics? No, not for me. I will follow the Bible and not be deceived, because deception is around every corner of which we look. Whether it be Bible versions, religious organizations, political affiliations, deceptions around every corner. But I promise you, very few times can someone promise, but I promise you, if you are saved and you live by that King James Bible and you do not stray, you don't fall for those demonic perversion Bibles and the religious entities, you will be well. You will not have to face the wrath of God. I have no idea why people have such a strange, morbid fascination and desire to suffer the wrath of God. And I'm not even talking about secular people, I'm talking about religious people who feel that they need to be that way. They have to earn their way because grace wasn't good enough. A gift from God wasn't good enough. They want to spit in God's face with the gift they've been given. They don't have to do that. There's no need to do that. Oh no, I'm saved by grace, but I got to work my way to it. Then you're clueless. You're either clueless, ignorant, or blind to it, deceived, or you're a deceiver. And any other name you want to throw upon it. I'm reminded of my son. I sound like an old man now. I'm reminded of a time. No offense to those who are older than me. But I'm reminded of my son. He was visiting a family member. And they all pitched in to buy him a gift. I'm not making this up. This is a true story. It was a big desk he needed for his computer and whatever. And so they got him this desk. And again, I'm telling you, he did not. This is not. I'm not making this up. And usually people go, "Oh, when someone usually says that they're making it up." No, I'm really not. They bought him this present, and that family member said he had to earn. Now he had to kind of earn off the rest of it, and so they had some work for him to do to earn the rest of it and pay it off. That is exactly what Roman Catholics think, and there are Mormons who think that, Seventh Day that think that, because you, without cursing, have cursed at God and said, your gift isn't good enough for me. I want to suffer the wrath of God. I want to follow these political organizations. I want to fall in line with the United Nations. I want to trust NATO to run a military that'll help my country, and it won't because you'll just go down on it. I want to suffer. What sense does that make? And there are others going, no, I will not suffer because I'm going to fight for God. Fight for God? What fight are you fighting? Because you're not out bringing the gospel. You're fighting political battles that you don't need to fight. So caught up are we with Trump, whether he's going to run for president or not run for president, that the Supreme Court say he's not valid, that Biden, he's too old, he's too crazy, he's satanic, and all these other things. Maybe it's going to be DeSantis, maybe it's going to be this, maybe Gavin Newsom, maybe. So wrapped up in what a beautiful design by Satan to take you away from truth, take you away from reality, take you away from where we are supposed to be, what we're supposed to be focused on. I bet most Christians watch more news about what's going to happen with Trump than they do spending time in their Bible. I'll see clips every now and then, but I do not watch the news. I don't even have cable. Why would I want to? Well, you got to keep up with the news, you know. You got to keep up with things that are going on. I promise you, if you kept up what's going on in the Bible, what's going on with your salvation, going on with your walk of life, where you're supposed to be with God, none of these things will matter. Because you won't be here. The Bible tells us this. We will not suffer the wrath of God if you are born again and saved. But that's not good enough. That is not good enough. You say, God, you need my help. You can't do this alone. What arrogance you have to suggest that. And I would even say some evil spirits. God, I know you gave me a gift, but I don't want it. I want to earn it. Why? If he's giving you a gift, take it. Why would you be dumb enough not to? He shed his blood for you, but still that's not good enough. gave you a free gift, it's not good enough. And let me tell you something, you are not good enough. There are none righteous. So when you're picking your sides, it's not Republican, it's not Democrat, it's not right, it's not left. You will either pick God or atheism, which is all the religions who detest God, who don't accept God, who don't live for God, who don't live for the scriptures the best that they can. We have infiltrations on every single level in almost every church out there. I'm not saying there might be a little church building somewhere that got a few folks in it. And I'll say the same thing I've said before about the last days or the last night. We are at supper time on the last day. That's where we're at. If you're more concerned about God picking Trump than giving your life to God and living by the Bible, you got problems. I don't care about Trump. I certainly don't care about Biden. I care about the words of God in that Bible, and I'm going to live by those. I suggest you do the same. Don't get deceived. Don't get thrown off track. Don't, you know, I don't want to say clickbait because I've made a couple clickbait videos on purpose just to have fun with folks. But don't get caught up in that. Where's that going to lead you? Maybe down the train or the trail of hate, deception, our fleshly desires to get even, to get back at people. Vengeance is not yours. Vengeance belongs to the Lord. Everybody wants to work their way to heaven. I guess I will work my way to heaven by doing what the Bible tells me to do. Living the Word of God to the best of my abilities. No man perfect, no. We all fall short of the glory of God. Yes, we do. But don't you go out willfully sinning and saying you fell short. You're just a sinner. We have a world that'll be controlled by religious figures, controlled by the Vatican, United Nations. They're all going to unite. The European Union, which is the whole area of Gomer, Gog, and all that. The stage is being set, and still you want to save America? It's dying. It's not on life support, but it did get into the hospital. It just got admitted not too long ago. And the prognosis isn't good, nor is it ever going to be. There's no road that you can kick this can down. The road, we're dead. We're at the, it's a cul-de-sac, buddy. It's a dead end. You got a couple houses left on the street. You're almost there. We're done. What are you fighting for? It's not for God. I'm going to get Trump into office. I'm going to get Biden into office. I'm going to get. For what? There is nothing you can do in that voting booth for whatever president that's going to suddenly change the direction that God has already deemed it was going and has allowed it to go. Perhaps instead of handing out your political flyers, you might want to hand out some gospel tracts. I said a long time ago, I don't pray for this country. I pray for the people in this country to give themselves to the Lord. How many times can you vote? How many times can you put your finger into the socket get electrocuted and still keep saying, I don't understand. Some are just ignorant, some don't care, some just want what they want. Some go to church buildings just to be there. Some will go to church buildings that they don't even belong to. You're not supposed to belong to a church building. Yeah, no, I know. That's my point. I belong to God, no one else. Now, don't anybody make the joke, well, what about your wife? Don't knock it off. Don't be silly. Of course, I belong to my wife. She belongs to me. The Bible tells us that. We are one. And I rule that house, except when the trash has to get taken out, or I got to mow the lawn. Had to bring a little levity there, a little humor on that last part. I don't want to ramble on and on and on. What are you going to do? Are you going to keep on turning on Fox, CNN, Newsmax, MSNBC, CNN? I think I already said CNN. CNBC, OAN. I'm pausing because I'm trying to think of the other stations out there. One American News. I said that's one. I think that is OAN. Whatever other channels are. The Real American Voice or the American Voice. I don't know. People out there making YouTube videos. Who can vote for Trump? Biden? Did you know Trump did this and Biden did that? Nobody's out there making. Did you know God did this for you and Satan did that? Did you know Jesus shed his blood for you on the cross? He sacrificed himself. He let himself be murdered, be killed, and died for you. But that's not good enough for you. You need more. Sorry, I dropped a quarter on my desk. It's not good enough for you. You need more. I need revivals. I need a revival in Asbury so I could see. I could see. Oh, I gotta. What are you, the Jews of old times? You need a vision to see things. You have no faith. If I see it and I feel it, then I know it's true. Okay. You can jump for joy for Jesus, or you can sit there quietly for Jesus. I'm just confused. People just wanted the hard way. Today's people are just as stiff necked as the Jews of which the Bible spoke about in those days. It's pretty sad. Like I said before, I'm going to be making some other podcasts, obviously, because I can make. That's what I do. I don't know what's coming up, but I know I got a number of things in the works. I almost didn't even do this podcast. I was going to do something else different for this podcast, but I stuck with this because I wanted to wrap this up and move into the next series of topics and things I'll be discussing. Hopefully, I can do more of them. And again, you can find my address on here. I have it on there. So, well, not my personal address, but my P.O Box. Feel free to send any hate mail or any questions. Um, well, that was negative, Steve. Just kidding. Although, you can send me hate mail, doesn't matter. I'll still answer it. Although I say that, and there's one individual that I know, and I'll say right here, I am guilty. I have not written him back. This has nothing to do with the program. It has to be somebody I knew back where I moved from. A brother in Christ up in that direction. So if he is listening to this, I'm writing you, buddy. I promise. I'm getting that ready. I have a little notebook over there. I have several notebooks over there, but anyways. We're here. Now, this is going to be the first time I've ever asked for a donation. No, I'm not broke. Well, I guess we're all broke, I guess. But the cost of gospel tracts and Bibles and things, well, it is costly. No, I'm not asking money to keep the internet going or get myself a new camera or anything like that. Just gospel tracts and Bibles. I just buy Bibles, King James Bibles, and I put them in every mailbox and hand them out to whoever I can who's willing to take it. It's gonna be a time when you're not even be able to buy a King James Bible. They'll probably start banning those off the shelf. So let to order those up in bulk. Um, I feel guilty for even asking anyone to donate to the program, but your money will be well spent. Obviously, not on me. I work for a living. I don't take money from people. I don't have a congregation. I don't ask for donations to give to me personally. I don't collect. I don't collect a check from the government because I may or may not served in the armed forces, and we shouldn't even be taking their money anyways. And you can deny their money. I was looking into that one time. You can deny their money, and you can even work, even if you're fully disabled. Ain't that crazy? PTSD too. Yeah, everything. It's amazing. Um, some folks will tell you they can't. They can. I've known. Well, I know one Christian individual. I'm not going to say his name, but he was false in what he said. But I've known actually secular people the same thing. They would just say, "Oh, the government says I can't." Well, it's not actually true. You can. Well, pretty much most of the time, unless you're walking around with no legs and no arms. Even those people do motivational speeches, so they still work. Um, I appreciate your time, but realize we are very much at the end. I don't know how one can't see it. And if you're not worried about the end of the world, you might want to worry about the end of your life because that's coming too. With that, I thank you, and I look forward to talking to you in the next podcast, and we'll be going a different direction. And with that, God bless, and have a beautiful one.